Streaming worldwide from the Klamath Sports Network studios in Klamath Falls, it's time for the KSN Underground Podcast with Brian Gailey.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. I'm Brian Gailey, the publisher of Klamath Sports Network. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving holiday. A little bit of a lull in high school sports this last week, so I took a much-needed week off, which is why there was no podcast last week and very few sports-related updates published to KlamathSports.net. I spent some time with family, traveled a little bit, and mainly just had a chance to unwind. How was your holiday? Are holidays a chance for you to relax, or do you find yourself a bit more stressed out? Let me know. If you're watching somewhere where there's comments, let me know in the comments below how holidays and you get along. Did you go shopping on Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, or even Cyber Monday? I hope you found the deals you were after. I do ask, as a local guy here, just remember to shop locally this holiday season. As Amazon, they're not going to sponsor your child's Little League team. That will be up to your local mom and pop shops. So please remember them this holiday season. If we're not here for them now, they may not be there for us later. In today's episode, we've got Talkin Viks with Coach Lease. We also have a Gaucho Collective Featured Interview with Coach Doug Werner from High Altitude Track and Field. In Talkin Viks, we visit with Coach Lease about the Vikings semifinal game versus Marshfield. We also talk about the 4A State Championship, what's next for the young men now that football season is over, and we even chat a little bit about Mazama's 10 graduating seniors. In the Gaucho Collective Featured Interview, I visit with Coach Werner from High Altitude Track and Field. If you've been following along a while, you'll know I have talked with Coach Werner before, a couple years back on Ask Klamath for Klamath Falls News. In today's episode, we catch up on how High Altitude Track survived the dreaded viral thingy of 2020. We also talk about what's next for the club and how athletes as well as coaches can become involved with High Altitude Track. Today's episode is brought to you by the members of the Klamath Sports Network family, the KSNsiders. For just $5 a month, you can help support what we're doing here at Klamath Sports Network. Computers, cameras, fuel, and time, they're all not cheap. Your membership to the KSNsiders helps offset some of the costs that remain after sponsors and advertisers help with our expenses. I am not rich, and sports coverage will not make me rich, but that's not why I am here anyway. I'm here to tell the stories of our brilliant student athletes. I do ask that you please become a KSNsider and help me tell these stories of these student athletes. Learn more about the program and how to sign up over at KlamathSports.net. Just click on the yellow button that says Become a KSNsider. So this has been a very busy transitional week for fall and winter sports in high school. Winter practices started just a few weeks ago. Some non-league contests are actually underway tonight. If you can believe that already. It's hard to, it just seems like we just started football, but that's now over. Basketball season is here. Some of those early matchups are happening here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. I do want to look back on the fall season and at least at the state championship games that were held this past weekend. We actually had 3 Basin teams with an opportunity in the semifinals to make their way to their respected state championships. Mazama, Lost River, and Lakeview all had a chance, but unfortunately fell short in the semifinals. I was on the sidelines for the Mazama semifinal game versus Marshfield, and I have to tell you, the Pirates looked amazing in that game. They capitalized on mistakes made by the Vikings and shown why they were the team to beat in the 4A. Even with those mistakes, Mazama held on and challenged Marshfield for all 4 quarters. We will talk with Coach Lease more about that coming up in Talkin Viks in just a moment. Taking a look at those state championship games, going back to the 1A, that was number 2 Powder Valley versus number 1 Adrian. Adrian was the overall favorite in this game. They did come out a little slow in it, but did win 46-38 over Powder Valley. Quite possibly the game of the weekend last weekend was the 2A game of Coquille and Kennedy. Number 4 Coquille, number 2 Kennedy. Coquille wins that game 38-28. This is not how I saw this game going. I actually saw Kennedy being the dominant team here, and Coquille just showed up and ran the ball and ran the ball and ran the ball and ran it some more. 505 yards of rushing, and they never threw a pass. Running back Gunnar Yates had 23 carries and 390 yards himself with 5 touchdowns. Yates is a beast. Hopefully he's getting looked at by some colleges, because that is an amazing game, even at the 2A level. To me, that a game of those numbers, it doesn't matter which classification you're in. That is an amazing game by Gunnar Yates. My hat's off to him and congratulations to him, as well as the rest of Coquille on that victory for the 2A state title. I do believe Yates is also the OSAA Player of the Week based on that game. In the 3A, number 3 South Umpqua took on number 1 Siuslaw. And this was a very close game. It ended up being 14-9. Siuslaw won that game. I picked Siuslaw to win this one. I thought they would be the favorites heading into it. And it ended up being a very close game all the way to the end. The Siuslaw Vikings coming out on top. Then, of course, there was the 4A contest between number 7 Marist and number 1 Marshfield. Marshfield wins this one 49-34 to become the 4A state champions. They go undefeated on the entire season. I watched this game on the NFHS network, and I thought, like many others, and Coach Lease will tell you in our interview here in a moment, I thought it was over in the first half. I thought Marshfield had just stomped all over Marist and it was over. But somehow, some way, Marist found a way to score some points in the second half and made a very strong run, but it ultimately just was not enough. Marshfield got a good drive at the end of the game and sealed the deal. 49-34, Marshfield Pirates is the state champs. I am continually impressed by their quarterback, Dominic Montiel. He is the player of the game there. I actually think, I'm actually going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to actually say, for me, Dominic Montiel is the MVP of the entire 4A. When we look statewide, and there's going to be an all-state teams later in the year, later in the month, we're going to hear those names come out. I would be shocked if Dominic's name is not first team all-state as the MVP, if you would, for the entire 4A classification statewide. He had an amazing season. He had support from his receivers as well as his running backs, but I do believe Dominic Montiel is the real deal. I'm hoping he's going to get some offers, D1, D2 at minimum. Offers for Montiel. I know some other players have already announced commitments to D1 schools. I'm going to keep my eyes out and I'm going to keep my ears open, and we're going to listen and see where Dominic ends up. Looking at the 5A, this was a game that shocked me. I thought this was going to go a different way than it did. It's number 5 Thurston, number 2 Silverton. Silverton beats Thurston by 6 points, 26-20. I actually thought this was going to be all Thurston from the very beginning. I thought Thurston was going to run all over this. They have more. They've shown how tough they are in recent years. I believe that they're just better than their number 5 ranking. They kept Silverton from scoring the entire second half. Silverton ran up 26 points in the first half. Thurston in the final 3 quarters added 20 of their own. It just ended up not being enough for the Colts. Silverton wins 26-20 over Thurston. So congratulations to all the state champs, Adrian, Coquille, Siuslaw, Marshfield, and Silverton. That leaves the 6A. That'll be decided this weekend. More teams play in the 6A tournament than play in the others, so they have an extra week in there for them. It will be number 4 Central Catholic or number 3 Tualatin. That game will be live from Hillsborough Stadium on Saturday on the NFHS network, the Portland CW if you're up there, OSAA Radio Network, and the 620 Rip City Radio will all carry that game live. Our easiest way down here to watch it's going to be on the NFHS network or listening on the OSAA Radio Network. So we're going to take a break here in just a moment, but when we come back, we're talking Vikes with Coach Lease. I want to thank our sponsor for this episode, you, our KSNsiders. You might be asking, who is a KSNsider? A KSNsider is a financial supporter of Klamath Sports Network. I can hear you now. Shit, he wants money. Before you tune me out, listen to this. KSNsider is a way for fans to support what is done here on Klamath Sports Network, because without your support, content and shows like KSN Underground would not exist. Anyone can be a KSNsider, especially if you love high school athletics. Parents and family of players? Check. Fans of a school or program? Check. Fans of what we do here at Klamath Sports Network? Check. people with a pulse. Check. I invite you to help by pledging as little as $5 per month. Every little bit helps keep me caffeinated and fuel in the tank to cover those road games. For more information, visit klamathsports.net and click on the yellow button at the top of the page that says Become a KSNsider. Our program is managed via the Patreon platform. There is no obligation for you to sign up. You can cancel at any time. Pledges start at $5 per month. Content like this cannot be made without support from people like you. Thank you. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. I appreciate you listening today. We are a day delayed today. I had some technical difficulties getting my audio for the voiceover here done and clear and processed correctly. I ultimately had to re-record everything a second time. Had some issues. It's a weird thing. We talk a little bit later on the Gaucho Collective Featured Interview with Doug Werner. Doug mentions that he has a meeting for high altitude track perspective people. That's actually happening tonight. In our interview, we talk about it being tomorrow. That's actually going to be tonight in that. But first, before we get to all that, we're talking Vikes with Coach Lease, head coach of Mazama football. We're going to talk about the semifinal loss to Marshfield, the 10 Mazama football Vikings seniors, and what is their plan for the early part of the football offseason. Hello, Coach. Thanks for being back on the show.
Love being on the show.
It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk. Got a little break over the holiday here. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. I had two of my three daughters at home, and it was good. It was good to have them at home.
So are you guys a turkey family or a ham family?
Oh, we're a traditional turkey family.
Very good. What about Black Friday? Did you go out and do any of the stuff out there?
I don't do any of that stuff. Not at all. Stayed away from it.
That doesn't surprise me. Coach, last time we got to talk, it was before the semifinal game. We were looking ahead to your time against Marshfield there in the semifinals. It didn't go your way. A lot of mistakes out there on the field. They got you 36-0, held you to 154 yards of offense. Those mistakes is what got you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely. You can't allow a team like that to have the football, give up a big play and fumble the football. I think we gave them the ball on the 20. It was either the 11. We gave him the ball on the 20 once, and we gave him the ball on the 11 once. And I can't remember which fumble occurred in the second quarter or which fumble occurred in the third quarter. But we gave up a big play in the second quarter also that allowed them to get down to the 1 yard line. And those were the two issues that, we talked about. We can't give up big play and we can't make mistakes. And both those things occurred in the second quarter. And we gave up 15 points in that second quarter. If it hadn't been for those two issues, I believe it probably would have been a scoreless half. We would have went 0-0, and then second half would have been the tail. But when coming out, they clearly had the momentum. We continued to make mistakes in the third quarter, and they pad their league, and it just got away from us.
Yeah, the fumble in the second quarter really did hurt. But the first quarter was really even. It was 0-0 through the first quarter. It looked like a good battle was going to happen. Unfortunately, it just didn't turn out as such. Last game of the season, semifinal game, winner went on to the state championship, and congrats to Marshfield. They ended up winning the state championship against Marist. It was an amazing game. Did you get a chance to watch that?
Oh, yeah, I watched the game.
Yeah, it was a great game.
Well, it wasn't a great first half, to be honest with you. I think Marshfield just kind of had their way with Marist. The way they got after him in the first half, and I think in the second half they felt like they pretty much had that game in hand. A lot of people thought that they had that game in hand, I included, and let them creep back in it a little bit, and then of course got the big stop and then drove down and punched one in and pretty much sealed the deal. But they're to score. I believe they scored 42 in the first half. I believe
so. Yeah,
it was some unreal deal that. The amount of points and the yards that they put up in the first half of that game. And, looking at our game and looking at their game, you think, defensively, the job we did against them and the things we did and only giving up 15 points and knowing that it was our mistakes that set those things up for them. Not to take anything away from Marshfield, but, we're right there. We're right there with a group of young men that were right on the verge of greatness. And Marshfield's an outstanding football team, outstanding football program, well coached, great tradition. I believe that was their fourth state championship in the history of the school. And you got a coach that won it as a player in 92 and then got to win it as a coach in 21. So, it's just an outstanding deal. My hat's off to them. I was very pleased with the way they performed and got after it, and we're still knocking on the door. We're knocking on the door. We're trying to get there. We're trying to get it figured out, and we will. There's no doubt in my mind we will.
So we're going to talk about your seniors here in a minute. You're graduating 10 of them this year. A lot of good talent there, but you've got a lot of talent coming up. We talked a little bit about it after the game, the semifinal game there on the field. With guys that are coming up, what did you learn about those young men for next year to get you prepared for next season?
Well, I learned, they can play. They're players. They're all conference, all state caliber kids they're going to have to lead the way for us next year. And we have a number of them. We got a number of them returning. The sky's the limit for this group. We have some other young men, big physical kids, especially on the offensive line, that'll be able to step in also. We're going to be just as big as we ever have been up front. My second year here, we averaged about 6'2", 6'3", 255 across the front. We're going to be right there next year. We're going to be very, very big and physical up front. So the sky's the limit. Like I said, we got to come together. We're looking forward to hopefully a normal preseason and off season, and getting things squared away with a camp and everything leading into it. And we'll be able to put those pieces in place a little bit earlier than in August, and we'll have some decisions made going into August, and hopefully we hit the ground running and not trying to figure out personnel. That's the biggest thing. If you have your personnel figured out by that first game, after the jamboree, you have camp, jamboree, and that first game, you pretty much have your personnel squared away. Then you're just talking about scheme and development and camaraderie and all those things to build a real team.
And your team, it came together later in the season. You've, as you said many times on the show here, you found your stride. Those seniors, Tanner Wood, Zeke Keaton, Savion Burke, Aiden Kent, Gunnar Dulce, Brandon Gailey, Ben Whalen, Daniel Yancey, Nate Tramp, and Isaac Pena all came together for you as their senior year. What did you happen to say to those young men after that game?
They were doing their senior things. Their parents were out there. I didn't really have a chance to talk to them all. We're going to do that. We like to do a senior lunch here at Mazama. Once the dust settles a little bit, we'll probably do that next week, and I'll have those boys come in. We'll have lunch, myself and Coach Fullerton. We'll have lunch and we'll speak our piece there. When you end your season like that, and they need to be around family and friends and everything. They don't need to hear from me. I got plenty of time to say what I need to say with them, say to them. And the biggest thing that we have always said, and that we will always continue to say, and the stance that we'll take, is that they're once a Viking, always a Viking. They're part of our family, and they're our sons. For myself, Coach Fullerton, Coach Mills, and Coach Hall, those young men can always call upon us. They can always come around. They can always be around, and if they need something. And we've had young men, come back and say, Coach, I need to talk to you about this, and what do you think about that? And I still have young men to this day that I write letters of recommendation on. I take phone calls for, and a number of things. I have some young men right now that are deciding where they want their futures to be, and we're talking about it. So, we are here for them, and it doesn't matter how old they are or anything else like that, or if they get themselves in trouble or anything else like that. We're here for them, and we will always be here for them. It's hard for these young men to go from practicing with us every day, us being on them every day and training them and everything else. And then, it all comes to an end. It's very difficult. And some of these boys, they think like, well, we don't need them anymore or anything. And that's not the case. We still need them in our lives and our relationships and with them. The thing is that we have a program that we are building and we continue to build. And our focus now is on developing the next group of young men coming through. They have made it to the pinnacle. They really have. These 10 seniors, they've made it as far as any Mazama Viking has ever made it here in our football program. They made it to the semifinals, and that the development and growth when it comes to football is over. Now, our relationships will never end. We'll always be here. It's just the amount of time we spend with them, after this is significantly less. So some handle it well, some don't. So.
Well, it is a family, right? And it's not just it's not just around a ball and pads and on the grass of the field. It's a whole family. And as the players say, it's a brotherhood for them, but it's more than that. It's a whole family as well.
Absolutely. It's just like, your kids going on after they graduate off to college and everything. It's the exact same feeling that I've had every year with these group of young men. They've graduated. Their graduation comes a little early when it comes to football, and it happens in November. So it's time for them to move on. They should be focusing on what they're going to be doing next year, finishing up here at Mazama, and what they're going to be doing next year.
Now, speaking of finishing up here at Mazama, we're not going to talk about next season because that's a long ways down the way. But I do know you got a couple things planned, including an awards banquet or awards night coming up as well. What's next for Mazama football in the short term?
Well, we're right now in zero period. We're kind of letting them kind of do their thing. And what I mean by that is kind of letting them, the focus on training and everything else is kind of put on the back burner for the month of December. And they're having a bunch of games and activities in zero period, a bunch of physical fitness type kind of stuff, still keeping them in shape and keeping conditioned. And so that's what they're doing in zero period. In January, that'll change. They'll start finishing up their weight training and finishing out the semesters, so they'll max. Most of the seniors end up not staying in zero period. They end up getting out of zero period. It's pretty early for them to get up at 6:30 in the morning and get in here by 7. And then we start taking in the freshmen in that zero period class. And then they start training. We start training and getting ready for the fall. Right now, we have yesterday and today, they're turning in their gear. We're getting the locker room squared away. We're getting ready to transition to winter sports. On the 15th, we are going to have our awards night. And that will be for our freshmen, JV, and varsity. And we'll start with the freshmen. They'll start at 7 o'clock sharp, and they'll receive their awards. JVs will also receive their awards. And then the varsity, all the awards will be handed out that night. Hopefully, all state isn't, typically announced till right before Christmas. And we're hoping that I'm hoping I'll catch wind of the all state selections by then. And then, because usually it's after the holidays that I end up congratulating those young men at all state. I'd be absolutely shocked if we didn't have a number of all state football players on our team. We have a number of all league kids and, team awards and everything. And they're finishing voting in on that stuff. And I'll get the awards ordered, and we'll be off and running on the 15th.
Like as you said, it's not quite over for some of these guys. A lot of them are going into winter sports as well. Mm-hmm. They're not just a single sport. They don't play just football. Many of them go into wrestling, a few play in basketball. How is winter sports shaping up? How's that coming along?
They're good. Our numbers are pretty good basketball wise, and we're looking forward to it. Our swimming team is back up and going. We got a new coach, co-head coaches swimming, and our numbers are pretty good there, 15, 20 kids swimming. So Coach Penrod always does a good job with the wrestling. We expect to have about 30, 40 kids in there on the wrestling mat rolling around. But we'll run 3 basketball teams in boys basketball. We'll run 3 basketball teams in girls basketball. Girls look like they could be pretty good this year. They can contend for a league title and make a run. So boys, I think some things are shaping up. I think some players are coming out, and he's trying to get it going and everything. And we'll see how they work out. I expect them to do a lot better than they have. They have some athletes, they have some talent out there, and we're looking forward to some big things from them. Our wrestling program is pretty well established. We are pretty dominant wrestling program in the special districts, and we absolutely believe they'll be competing for a district championship this year.
And those districts are established a little bit different than what we see in both football and basketball, right? There's some mixture going on in there.
Yeah, they're classified as a special district, so because of that reason, they combine other leagues into their district. So, for example, Cottage Grove and Marshfield are in with the other 6 Skyline Conference. So there's 8 teams in our special district.
Very good. Coach, I want to thank you for your time. It's been wonderful chatting with you all season and giving us the insight here for football. I greatly appreciate it. As we move into winter sports, we're going to be talking with some of your other coaches as well. But I want to thank you for your time here on the show. 13 episodes of chatting with you here. I hope you didn't get tired of me, but I do want to thank you.
Not at all. I really enjoyed it. You're doing a great job and promoting Mazama athletics and the kids and everything. I think you do an outstanding job, and I want to say thank you to you for your time and effort and energy that you put in for these young kids. It's exceptional, and it's good to see.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's not about me. It's about these kids. We're trying to tell the story of these kids. So I greatly appreciate you letting me have access and getting to chat with you in your office.
Perfect.
So thank you, Coach.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Coach, I greatly appreciate all the time that you've given us. It's been an amazing time to learn the players, get to know them on a personal level, not just by their number, but who they are, their faces, their expressions, what they stand for, who they are. You have a great group of young men there. I cannot wait to cover it next year. Before we get to all that, it is basketball season. We're going to be talking basketball here in just a few minutes after the Gaucho Collective Featured Interview. Many of those teams are on the road right now in invitational tournaments for the weekend. So got a couple of scores already in on how things went. Let's just give a little spoiler alert. If you're a Hornets fan, you're happy already. After the break, it's our Gaucho Collective Featured Interview with high altitude track and field head coach and founder, Doug Werner. Located at 11th and Main in downtown Klamath Falls, Gaucho Collective provides a fun and modern atmosphere for business owners and freelancers looking to grow their current presence or expand out of a home office.
Gauchos are diverse,
including those from higher education, internet and web development, photography, and marketing, just to name a few. Gaucho Collective engages entrepreneurs in ways that traditional offices cannot, through an open concept with a variety of semi-private and private spaces to suit all your business and collaborative needs. Amenities include flexible workspace options, fast and secure internet, document printing, kitchenette, utilities, conference room, hot coffee, and so much more.
Gaucho is even a great option for students looking to study off campus.
Community, collaboration, co-working. Your new office is waiting at Gaucho Collective. Learn more and become a member at gauchocollective.com. That's gauchocollective.com. Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. This is now time for the Gaucho Collective Featured Interview. Today we talk with founder and head coach of high altitude track and field, Douglas Werner. Doug is a USATF certified coach and just an all-round good dude. Here's my interview with Coach Doug Werner. Welcome, Doug. I'm glad to have you here on the show as a guest here for us.
Thank you, Brian. I'm glad to be here.
For those who don't know, Doug Werner is a USA track and field certified coach. He's the founder and head coach for high altitude track and field. We previously talked a few years back when we were doing Ask Klamath for Klamath Falls News with season 2, episode 9. That was November 2018. It seems like forever ago, but yesterday.
That is quite a while ago. Actually, I was only a few years in.
How's everything going now?
It's going well. I mean, COVID aside, things are going well. We're still here. We've grown a bit. I'd say that things have gone rather well, all things considered.
All things considered, I think a lot of people could say that. Although I'm pretty sure we could all agree that we don't want to do that ever again.
We don't want to do this ever again. No.
So we are transitioning into winter sports, and we're talking track and field. Most people think track and field being spring. Winter sports is basketball, wrestling, swimming. But you guys have a winter sport season 2, don't you?
We do have a winter sport, as a matter of fact. Our team is away into indoor track. You can't attach yourself to your school for any meets that aren't OSAA sanctioned. So we are away in, and we get invites all the time, all over the country. Currently, we have 4 decent sized indoor track meets on our schedule.
What meets are you guys looking at this year?
We have right now on our schedule, which we're going to have to raise a lot of money for, but we have meets in Louisville, Kentucky that we were invited to, and that's a big one. That's a big, monstrous one on the national scope. We've been invited to Spokane. We have our usual invite to the University of Washington High School Indoor Nationals. And the thing with them right now, though, is that I think there's some struggle within the school, whether they want to actually put this event on this year or not. People still have this fear of COVID, and rightfully so, but it's nice to get in there and get these competitions in.
It is good. Your athletes in general really can use this, going through what they went through last year.
They really need to get this going again. They need to get this mindset happening. The one thing that I noticed with COVID is that there's something that's happened in people's heads. On the athlete side, on the parent side, even on the coaching side. I lost a lot, believe me. The competitive edge, some still have it, but most have gotten just a tiny bit complacent. And I think that if we get back into these meets where they get to see these athletes again and get excited, they're going to come through. They're going to show us what they're made of.
Yeah, we saw that a lot with fall sports this year, getting back into a regular routine, even though for a lot of those, like for football, for example, the jamborees didn't exist. It was still cut kind of short. Practices started late, but it was as normal could be that we've had in a couple of years. What would a normal season going into winter look like for high altitude?
Well, normal season going into winter, actually, our winter season begins typically in October or November. This year, it's beginning this week. And that's just because waiting to hear on facility usage, et cetera, et cetera. It's been one battle after another. Again, one of those COVID things. We don't need to go into that. But a normal season would look like at the end of October, or the beginning of November, we would start our strength building phase. I work a phased approach. I want our kids to peak in May. I definitely don't want them peaking in March. So we work a phased approach that has them timed to peak in May. But they get to prepare themselves for these indoor meets, which have slightly different denominations in some areas. Like instead of the 100, they have the 60. They work, they build size, they build strength. Sometimes they're built like boulders going into indoor season, but it's good exposure for them. It's super good exposure for all of these athletes because they can pretty much walk their events. And just being in their brochures, these scouts that are just littered in these events are going to find out what all these athletes are doing in May, because not every club gets an invite. It's one of those things where if they know if you're there, they're going to want to see what you're doing in spring. So not only do I advise athletes going who are super into the sport to see an indoor event, but it's fun. It gets them on a college schedule, a college phased approach into their training.
So Doug, it's you mentioned you got some meets coming up, and it's kind of short termed in getting it. You normally start in October. Now you're getting it really going this week. If somebody's out there and they're in a track and field athlete, is it too late to get started for these winter meets? Or are you looking still being able to take kids in?
We are definitely taking new athletes. In fact, we are having our first team meeting tomorrow night at Crosspoint at 5:30 p.m. in the cafeteria. We might be starting a little bit late, but I still know how to time the approach correctly. So athletes are not going to be missing out on any of their training. We'll just extend their strength building training further into the season, which is totally okay.
Now, when we're talking as we're recording this here, it's December 1st, so we're coming right into the holiday season, into the snowy, wintry season. When are these meets? Are we talking January, February, or is it a little bit later? We
are definitely talking January and February and into March. That's the indoor season. I'll continue to keep looking into athletic.net and Direct Athletics, which is the college version of athletic.net, and we'll keep loading up as many meets as we can. None of them are mandatory, but there's definitely a few of them that I'd like as many of us to go to as humanly possible. Like the one, if we can get to that one in Louisville, Kentucky, that'd just be amazing for our team and our athletes individually. They're gonna see some college scouts. We've had discussions off the microphone here before. My son is running for you, or has run for you, and we've talked about like a lot of different things. And these indoor meets, you mentioned there are different lengths, right? You're not 100 meter, you're a 60 meter because it's inside. It's like a 200 meter track instead of a 400 meter track. Are there throwing events in the winter as well, or is it mainly just sprinting and distance? There is the indoor throw, which is similar to discus meets a kettlebell, and there's also some that have shot put there too. Typically, you don't see javelin because it's a high velocity, high altitude, high elevation throw. Same with the discus, and there usually isn't that much room because, like you said, 200 meter track. I do know of a few things that are in the works that might be adding the ability to have javelin and discus indoors fairly soon and pretty locally. Right on.
So if somebody's interested, are you looking for any specific event? Are you building relay team? Are you looking for sprinters? Are you looking for jumpers? What are you looking for? Or are you just the door's wide open?
So my personal expertise is sprints, relays, and jumps. But I do have a really good distance coach. I have a high jump coach that's a high jump and javelin coach at the moment. But we are definitely looking for a coaching staff, a full coaching staff. And somehow, some way I want to figure out how to get some of these guys paid, but it needs to happen because we can't just take all these sprinters and leave distance and leave hurdles and leave throws out of this mix. You know, these guys need exposure too. Mm-hmm. So if you're out there, coaches, we're looking for you.
Some of the best are already doing a winter sport, though. That's going to be the kind of the hard part for you. But there are a lot of retired coaches out there. You know, maybe you're a retired coach or you just got into the area. Look Doug up. He's definitely looking for some help out there if you're able to do so. Now, one of the big things as a parent, if you're listening in, you might be asking, all right, that's fine and dandy, but how do we travel to Louisville? Or do we travel as a team? Are we on our own? Do the kids got to do their own thing? What's going on with travel?
In the past, it's been subsidized by the team. Our travel costs have been subsidized by the team in our long distance travels. That being said, Louisville, Kentucky is definitely not going to be able to be subsidized by the team. And part of that is again, our team's inability to fundraise. You know, we had a fantastic treasurer who was instrumental in our team being able to have the funds to go different places. And Tira Mass, she was wonderful. We just have not had the ability to fundraise since COVID at all, period. And it's a shame, but we'll figure it out. I am seeking a sponsor.
Sponsors wanted.
Yes, sponsors wanted.
So the closer ones, you mentioned Spokane and Seattle, and I think in the past we've also discussed Boise as a location. I think there's some. You mentioned Phoenix or something in Arizona, if my memory serves correct. Those are a little closer to home, might be a little easier to do. What is something like that? Is it a weekend away? Is it a week? Is somebody going to have to take a vacation time and with their kid, or if they're an adult participating? How's that going to work out?
It depends upon how they choose to travel. You know, for a person like me, I'm going to drive to Flagstaff. Flagstaff is a wonderful venue, and it's put on by Northern Arizona University, and they do a fantastic job. But I would personally drive to Flagstaff. So for me, that would be a 3 to 4 day trip. For somebody that just wants to fly in, you know, that could be just a couple of days for them. And Boise, one of the reasons why there's discussion of another indoor track and field venue is because Boise has decided to end their indoor program. It's one of those things that indoor track is a very high demand sport and very little surplus.
Yeah, there's not too many venues that have an indoor 200-meter track, is there?
No. And some of them actually, so the track denominations look like 200-meter or 375-meter, which is what Seattle's is. It's not quite a full 400-meter track. It's kind of odd, you know, when they start the 400, they start back in a strange spot, but it's still really cool. It's a really cool opportunity. It's a fantastic venue, and some of these tracks just feel like clouds. It feels like you're just running on a cloud. And when you hear these sprinters, you know, you look at them and some of them are weighing 185, 190 pounds, and you can't hear them. It's amazing. And, you know, some of our athletes, you know, some of them, and a couple of them, Carringer, you know, there's some days I ask him, you know, like, hey, dude, what did China do to you? And when you can't hear them running on these tracks, it's amazing.
It's not uncommon for these guys to throw their feet on the ground and slap the ground a little bit.
Not at all.
So there's a lot of cool things you've got going on. And let's step back to the thing here, the recruiting, if you would, for coaches and athletes and whatnot. How does somebody reach out to you if they're interested? If they're listening in, they're going, hey, this sounds kind of cool. I want to get to know more. You said you have a thing tomorrow, but say they're listening after tomorrow. How does somebody get a hold of you to learn more?
feel free to call my phone number at 541-810-2288. Again, that's Coach Douglas Werner, 541-810-2288. We also have a website, which I got to be honest, I'm not the best reviewing what's coming in from the website, but if you want a little bit of insight on our team, you can go to www.highaltitudetf.com. And then we have our Facebook page. Our brilliant treasurer that I spoke of earlier set up 2 different ones, so you can tell which one is the most active.
You have a page and a group as well. I think it's the group that's a bit more active, right?
Yes.
Coach Werner, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we wrap up today?
Yeah, for the parents that are listening, I've been real careful in the past about giving guarantees and making claims. But what I will say is that while I was being careful, we've built a tradition. And if you're listening, your children will not be learning any bad habits from this program. And these athletes are so self-motivated that even if it's younger children, these older athletes are so focused and so driven that they embrace these younger athletes and they teach them really good habits. And there's nothing that any parent would ever have to worry about going on at any of our training sessions or practices. 2
of your fastest runners, Brandon Gailey, Aiden Kent, have been in your program for quite a while. They kind of go back and forth on who's a little bit faster at the time. I know both been very beneficial to be part of your club, part of your group, to learn all the little nuances of like coming out the blocks cleanly, how to run the 100, for an example. So there's a lot that can be developed here and a lot that can be learned here. So for anybody out there that's looking to learn more, experience, grow, become better. Both of those young men, they're going to be looked at this spring as state level competitors among some of your others.
And so strength and speed aren't the only focuses of our group. Actually, what our main focus is in technical proficiency. And we're talking about angles. We're talking the way they come out of blocks, the way their steps are, their gait, everything. We're talking extreme technical proficiency. And what I always tell people is that we're raising coaches here. All these athletes are so academically sound in the sport, even the younger ones, learning from not just myself, but from these older athletes. We have 10-year-olds that can coach this sport. And I'm not even joking. We have 12-year-olds that know exactly what I want to see. They know exactly what I would say, and really something to see. It's something to witness. When you see a little 9-year-old girl carrying a set of blocks that's bigger than her, it's, it'll get you.
Well, Coach, I thank you for being on the show here today. It's been a pleasure here talking with you again.
Thank you, Brian.
We got to do this more often.
Yes, we definitely do.
One more time for people to learn as we wrap up, learn about you, get a hold of you. Where can they know more?
highaltitudetf.com and our Facebook page, our group page, and my phone number, 541-810-2288.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
That was Coach Werner on the Gaucho Collective Featured Interview. Thank you, Doug, for coming on the show and talking about the club and the challenges you guys are facing. And you have openings available for track and field athletes if they'd like to learn to be better and do that indoor track and field season this winter. Chatting with Coach Werner, we didn't bring this up on the interview, but we did talk a little bit about it after we put everything away, and we're still kind of BSing there inside Gaucho. And he did remind me that he is affiliated and works with the YMCA. He works with the youth sports there of the YMCA, and they're actually also going through a coach struggle and coach shortage over there at the YMCA. He wanted me to let you guys know that there are options available and opportunities available to coach at the YMCA level. If that's something that interests you, reach out to him by giving a phone call over to the YMCA, and he'll direct you to the appropriate people to get you set up. In the weeks to come, we are going to be talking basketball and interviewing basketball coaches here on both the Talkin Viks and our featured interview. But if there's somebody specific you would like to hear from, send me an email. Let me know who you'd like to hear on the KSN Underground Podcast over at info@klamathsportsnetwork.com. I'd like to get those emails to see who you would like to hear from on the show. We are not done just yet. Coming up next, we're going to take a quick look at local high school basketball.
Down
Need some extra spending money? Want to be active and stay connected to the games you love? Become an athletic official. It's easy. Visit www.newofficials.org. With the recent decline of a number of officials, we need you now. It is your opportunity to give back to the Oregon high school sports community. Be part of the OSAA's statewide sportsmanship initiative. Don't delay. Become an official today. www.newofficials.org.
Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. My name is Brian Gailey. You've been listening here tonight on this chilly Thursday in December. You know when it's December? That means high school basketball. And it all starts off, practice actually started off a couple of weeks ago. Teams have been building themselves, trying to get conditioned in a couple of weeks. And you know what? Our local high schools are Mazama, KU, Henley. They're all on the road at invitational tournaments this weekend. It's already underway. It is already on. It is started. I can't believe it. It seems like we just got started doing this, and now it's basketball season. Henley, both boys and girls, have gone to Wairika to play in the Wairika tournament. I do have some scores from that. Today, the Henley boys played West Valley and defeated them 62-43. And the Henley girls played Cascade Christian and defeated them 63-23. So far, at the time of this recording, those are the only two scores that have come in. Mazama boys are at Harlan Carter Invitational at Shasta High School, and the girls are at Arcata Invitational Tournament in Arcata High School. The Klamath Union boys and girls will be playing tomorrow at the Phoenix Tournament at Phoenix High School in the Rogue Valley. Looking ahead to some of the games this season, there's a couple of notable games that you're probably going to want to put on your calendar early so that you attend these ones. These are games that you're going to want to go to. And in the preseason this December on the 10th, Crater will be coming over to Mazama. That's 5A Crater. We'll be visiting Mazama. The next day on the 11th, Eagle Point will be coming over and playing the Vikings as well. In league play, we have some interesting matchups here for league play and some dates you want to circle. Hidden Valley at Henley will be on the 14th of January. And Hidden Valley at Mazama will be on the 21st of January. The Southtown series will continue on the 28th when Henley comes to Mazama. And Mazama will travel to KU on February 4th. The other game you're going to want to put on here is Henley at Klamath Union on February 18th. We're going to be talking more basketball from here on the KSN Underground Podcast. We're going to be visiting with our coaches from Mazama, as well as trying to get some interviews from our coaches from Henley and maybe even Klamath Union as well. I'd like to get to talk with some of these players like we did with football, getting to know who these players are, what their dreams are. Do they want to play in college? Or are they wanting to do something else? We're hoping to be able to get those scheduled as well. This has been another wonderful episode of the KSN Underground Podcast. It's good old lucky number 13 on the podcast. Appreciate you guys listening in this week. We had a great time talking with Coach Lease about football as it's wrapping up. We've had an opportunity to talk with Coach Werner about the challenges and the opportunities for indoor track and field. I want to thank you guys for listening here today. This show wouldn't be possible without you guys listening, so I thank you for doing that. I appreciate you listening on however you found the podcast this week. You can find it in other locations if where you came across it today is not the place you want to be. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and several others. You can also watch the podcast on YouTube as well as on our Facebook page. If you're in a place that like Facebook or YouTube where you have comments, please like, comment, subscribe, do all those fun things on those pages. If you've got any questions, go ahead and put those in the comment section of those pages. If where you're listening doesn't have that opportunity, send me an email. I mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again. info@klamathsportsnetwork.com. What a weekend and what a week this has been. It's going to be a fantastic basketball season. Lots of opportunity available. We're just going to have to wait and see who wants it the most. On behalf of my guests this week, Mazama football head coach Vic Lease, and High Altitude Track and Field founder and coach Doug Werner, I am Brian Gailey, and friends, we'll see you at the game.
and show your love. Head over now to Facebook and drop a like.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram.
This has been the KSN Underground Podcast with Brian Gailey. The podcast is a production of Klamath Sports Network. Join the game at klamathsports.net.